Um, so hello everyone. So my name is Christina Kamposiori, and I'm currently the Executive Program Officer at Research Libraries UK. For those who are not familiar with RL UK, it is a consortium of 39 research libraries across the UK and Republic of Ireland. And today I would like to present some key findings of a recent RL UK project, showcasing how RL UK member libraries work towards developing more inclusive practices in workforce recruitment and retention. So in this slide, I have included some more information about the governance of RL UK as an organization, but also the strategy on which I would like to focus on. So our current strategy, which runs until the end of 2025, highlights the transformative potential of libraries and includes 5 core strands, as well as 3 cross-cutting themes which run across all areas of the strategy. So I have also included the link here to the strategy in case you would like to check this out. And inclusion, equity, diversity, and inclusion is one of the core of the 3 cross-cutting themes, which act both as provocation for us, but also as an opportunity to think differently about our work and our partnerships. So at the time of the development of these strategies, issues around EDI were really at the forefront of discussions following the rise of movements such as the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as student activists in various institutions, which has had a strong influence on decision making and has motivated many professionals in many cultural heritage organizations to work towards cultural change and towards social justice. So at the time of the development, So within the RL UK membership, this shift presented an opportunity to become more open and transparent about the history of institutions and look at ways to uncover hidden voices in collections, make practices more inclusive, and work towards developing a more diverse workforce. So however, embedding EDI principles in practices and processes across different areas of the institutions in ways that are both transformative and efficient has certainly had and still has its challenges. So in this presentation, I will aim to discuss the episode-focused research that we conducted through using some job descriptions submitted by RL UK member institutions to the Research Library Position Description Bank. And these were used as the basis for exploring how issues around EDI are represented in job descriptions submitted by these institutions. But first, just to give some background information about RL UK's involvement in the Research Library Position Description Bank, or RLPD Bank, as I will be frequently calling it. So the RLPD Bank is a collection of position descriptions, or PDs, as we call them, from major academic and research libraries in the US, Canada, and the UK. And it fosters the sharing of information through a browsable and searchable database that provides access to a national collection or bank of position descriptions. So, and in this slide, I have also included a QR code that will lead you to the main site of the PD Bank. So RL UK joined the RLPD Bank in 2021, and since then, 21 RL UK member institutions have contributed 671 position descriptions. And we believe that this resource can be used, this database can be used by RL UK members as a resource to investigate a variety of issues around workforce development, but also look at the evolving role of the information professional. And this research aimed to be an experiment, an example of what can be done through using these results, and this was shared with our members. So moving now to the actual research we conducted through using the RLPD Bank. The goal was to investigate how issues around equality, diversity, and inclusion are represented in the job descriptions of the organizations that had submitted job descriptions, and explore how libraries apply EDI values to their recruitment practices, identify new roles, including leadership positions that are being created to drive EDI initiatives and contribute towards culture change within institutions, and look at the international context through a comparison to initiatives that were being undertaken at the time by US and Canadian research libraries. Yeah, and it is also worth noting that this piece of research aimed to contribute to discussions around workforce development within RL UK member institutions, and particularly the lack of diversity, on the issue of the lack of diversity that's often encountered in the research library workplace. So for the purposes of this study, an analysis of 319 job descriptions submitted by RL UK members to the RLPD Bank until August 2022 was conducted. This covered approximately the first year of RL UK contributions to the PD Bank. And the roles that had been submitted by RL UK members up to that point came from across the different areas of the library. This included leadership and senior roles, as well as middle management and junior positions. And regarding the employed approach, the focus was both on direct and indirect references to EDI. And some of the examples of direct references to EDI that I was looking for was roles, for example, which included language directly linked to EDI, such as mentioning anti-racism, equality, diversity, and inclusion, terms like LGBTQ+, disabled, disability, decolonization in their title, often indicating that they had been created as part of or to drive EDI initiatives in an institution. And also relevant EDI language in the main body of the job description, either as part of a positive statement, the role duties and description, or a person specification. And examples of indirect references to EDI that I was also looking for were language and expressions as part of the role title, description, duties, and person specification that did not directly refer to EDI but could be considered supportive of EDI. For instance, the statement to support a wide range of users and work with people from different professional backgrounds could be considered supportive of EDI. And I have also in this slide included a QR code that leads you to the full report, and I will have this at the end of the presentation as well for anyone who wants to scan it. So the job descriptions, the job descriptions research was complemented by semi-structured interviews with 1 or 2 representatives from 6 RL UK institutions, and each interview lasted up to an hour and helped build a broader picture of the EDI initiatives that were being led by RL UK members at the time. So in this slide, I have also included a list of the variety of topics that we discussed, such as talked around institutional policies or strategies around EDI, what or who drives change in an institution, roles that have been particularly created to drive EDI initiatives, the representation of EDI issues in the RLPD Bank job descriptions that these institutions had submitted, including the direct and indirect references to EDI, recruitment practices and how they support EDI, collection and use of statistics in support of EDI, as well as exploring the interest of the participants in the development of a program for emerging leaders that RL UK has been collaborating on with other organizations. And I can say more at the end. So the results of the analysis from both the BD Bank job descriptions research and the interviews were then placed within an international context. And this was achieved through examining relevant job descriptions submitted by research libraries in the US and Canada to the RLPD Bank. And given though the large number of position descriptions in the database, there were at that time around 4,900 in total from four consortia, including RL UK. And given that a large amount, a more targeted approach through keyword searching was conducted to bring up any relevant roles. And the terms used to conduct the keyword searches were chosen based on the terminology used to refer to EDI issues and initiatives in the RLUK job descriptions in the RLPD Bank. However, they were also informed by the interview discussions and the type of terminology generally associated with EDI in the UK and beyond. So moving now to the findings. So the majority of our UK job descriptions submitted to the PD Bank included some type of EDI or positive statement, and these were mostly found at the bottom of the job description templates and refer to the strategic plans and values of the library's home institution around EDI. And it is worth noting that the presentation of this information varied, and it could range from a few sentences to a table listing the values of the institution. And based on the job description analysis, our UK members had sometimes relevant policies, which implied that EDI was part of a library's goals, values, and working practices. These were mostly found within the body of the job description rather than at the beginning or end of the template. However, in some instances, there were statements which did not refer directly to EDI or included relevant language, but could be considered supportive of EDI and revealed inclusive recruitment practices. For example, statements mentioning the fact that the home institution, including the library, offered policies that were family-friendly or supported flexible working. Regarding the format of job description templates, these varied widely, not only across RL UK members, but also within specific institutions. And RL UK members, it's worth mentioning that RL UK members can generally upload both older and recent job descriptions in the PD Bank, which means that the templates and the way information is presented can vary widely. And also, this can also directly relate to the presence of EDI statements, as it is less likely to encounter EDI references, especially direct ones, in older versions of templates. And research across the RL UK submissions to the RLPD Bank revealed only one template at the time, which seemed to have been created to communicate very explicitly the commitment of the home institution to EDI. So the RLPD Bank analysis of the job description showed that there were 7 roles with direct references to EDI, meaning specific terminology in the title of the job description, often an indication that the role had been created primarily to lead and support EDI initiatives. The positions varied in terms of their seniority. They ranged from relatively junior to managerial and leadership positions. And the duties associated with these roles included working with and supporting communities from specific ethnic backgrounds or with other protected characteristics, or aiming to make collections more inclusive through decolonization. However, there were some job descriptions amongst those submitted by the RL UK community, which included terminology in their titles that did not directly refer to EDI, but could be considered, again, supportive of EDI, such as broadening access or participation. And the duties listed as part of these roles and the attributes sought in potential employees were often directly related to EDI. The interviews with RL UK member representatives showed that research libraries often find it difficult to justify the creation of roles, especially senior ones, that focus solely on EDI initiatives, as the home institutions can potentially already have EDI offices or other teams and groups that oversee EDI initiatives. Discussions, and it became apparent that libraries can more easily create more junior roles, often with a focus on collections or community support, rather than leadership roles, especially with a focus on the workforce. So even though there were few RL UK job descriptions with direct references to EDI in their title, the majority of RL UK members had submitted position descriptions that included direct or indirect references to EDI in the role responsibilities and person specification sections. Apart from EDI-related duties and responsibilities that could be considered role-specific, some institutions prefer to include more general EDI-related responsibilities across many, if not most, of the job descriptions they had submitted to the RLPD Bank. For example, this could relate to the responsibility of an employee in following and respecting institutional strategies and policies around EDI. Regarding the presentation of this information, especially around the more general EDI duties and personal attributes, institutions employ different approaches. Most listed this together with other duties or personal attributes. And in the case of one institution, the employed approach was to include 3 statements around EDI at the top, middle, and at the end of the key responsibilities section. It was also very common to include some type of EDI duties in the portfolio of responsibilities of senior roles, such as associate director roles or other managerial positions with specific EDI duties. And as it became evident through the interviews, it was easier for libraries to add relevant responsibilities when recruiting for an existing role, after, for example, after it had been recently vacated, than create a new one, especially a leadership role, due to the administration and funding challenges associated with this. And finally, information related to the qualification requirements included in the person specification section of the job descriptions revealed aspects of member institutions' recruitment practices and the extent to which EDI had been taken into consideration. And the majority of RL UK roles submitted in the RLPD bank did not list advanced degrees or degrees on specific disciplines or other qualifications as essential requirements for applying unless these qualifications were considered necessary for the role. So through the interviews, it also became possible to collect further information, not only about the position descriptions that had been submitted to the RLPD bank, but also about existing EDI structures within home institutions and the libraries, and inclusive recruitment and retention practices, and any relevant metrics collected by institutions to support EDI. So based on our findings, RL UK member libraries often have internal policies or codes of ethics to guide professional practices and encourage inclusive behavior, but they tend to align their general approach to EDI with the home institution's strategic goals and ambitions in the area. And RL UK member libraries are taking steps to make the recruitment and retention practices more inclusive. And some of these key steps that were reported include institutions changing the approach through which job descriptions are developed. For example, through gathering useful feedback on a job description from different staff members to ensure that the role description and person specification are as inclusive as possible. Library staff involved in recruitment undertake relevant training with regards to job description development as well as interviewing. The interview panels that are aimed to be gender balanced and bring together a variety of views. Yes, for example, a combination of professional services and academic panelists. And the job applications tend to be anonymized to remove unconscious bias, while before an interview, the needs of potential candidates are increasingly taken into account, for example, in the cases of certain disabilities. Various grassroots groups and other EDI committees within the library increasingly play an important role in workforce development and retention. And some institutions organize open days to support inclusive recruitment and retention practices. And finally, there are different projects in institutions that aim to understand the views and experiences of certain members of the library's workforce and broader community. For example, students from a particular ethnic background and gather relevant metrics. So moving now to the last part of the presentation, so I will share a few findings around the international landscape analysis that we did. So that involved the examination of job descriptions submitted by research libraries in the US and Canada to the RLPD Bank. These were the three consortia: the Association of Research Libraries, the Association of Southeastern Research Libraries, and the Canadian Association of Research Libraries. And that, and I compared the information that RL UK institutions have submitted to some of these job descriptions. So this examination revealed a variety of roles from all areas of the library and from different levels of seniority within direct references to EDI, looking at these US and Canadian job descriptions. And at the time, there were 984 entries by US and Canadian libraries, which had all 3 terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion anywhere in the job description. And it is worth noting that no RL UK job description that had been submitted up to that point included all these 3 terms. And a keyword search with the terms diversity and inclusion anywhere in the job description brought up an even greater number of entries, including several Arval UK entries. And searches with single terms revealed that the word diversity was the most popular and widely adopted by all consortia. And the terms inclusion, equity, disability, and race also brought up a significant number of entries, especially by ARL institutions, the Association of Research Libraries in the US, which means that there were either roles with relevant duties and responsibilities or job descriptions which included other elements, for example, certain statements with these terms. So regarding the term equity, it became evident that this was a term which US and Canadian institutions preferred to use over the term equality, which was more widely used by our UK member institutions. And the results of the keyword searches showed that there were several position descriptions, especially by ARL institutions, which had direct references to EDI in their title. More specifically, there were 12 entries, which included all three terms, equity, diversity, and inclusion, in the title of the position description. And the majority of these were senior roles, including a director, associate university librarian, and assistant dean level. And as mentioned previously, there were 7 position descriptions with direct references to EDI in their title submitted by our UK members, while CALC, the Canadian Association of Research Libraries, had no entries with any of the listed terms in the titles of job descriptions at the time. And there are different, in the final report, we have included the different tables listing all these comparisons and the different number of entries per consortium that included certain EDI terms. So please visit if you access the report, you can find all the details there. As overall, so this research showed that even though RL UK members gradually incorporate EDI elements directly or indirectly in their job descriptions, there were not many roles focusing solely on EDI, at least at the time of this research, that were submitted to the RLPD bank. On the other hand, at the time of this research, there was an increasing number of positions in the US that were being created to drive EDI and culture change more broadly within research libraries. Given though recent developments there, it would be interesting to see how this changes or is impacted. And something that all consortia had in common was that they included EDI and other positive statements in the job descriptions, which could be found in the PD bank. So based on our interviews, current structures within our UK members, home institutions, and other challenges, such as lack of funding, prevent many libraries from creating more roles with a focus solely on EDI. However, the approach employed currently by our UK members involves adding EDI responsibilities to existing roles, for example, when they are vacated, especially senior ones, and launching initiatives and groups which aim to promote EDI and contribute towards an inclusive working environment which can attract employees from diverse backgrounds. And as RL UK members progress their EDI plans and more institutions contribute to the RLPD bank, some of these practices will hopefully start to become more visible in the job description submitted. And thus for us, some next steps include include repeating this exercise in the future to document this project. So thank you very much for listening. Here are the QR codes again to the RLPD Bank and the EDR report if you would like to check this out. And I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Christina. So if anyone has any questions, if you'd like to put your hand up, and I will pick out some questions from the chat to ask as well. So one question we had was, did you find any common language used across the job descriptions, for example, specific sentences or paragraphs being inserted across the board?
So yeah, so this is at the time when we were doing the survey, one thing is that we found more approaches to be similar approaches rather than exact exact sentences or phrases to be used across the different institutions. The thing is that at the time when I was doing that research, most of the job descriptions that were submitted were older versions with older templates, and that became more evident during the interviews with some of those who had submitted these job descriptions, and yeah, who mentioned that they plan to do more in the future, and they were at a stage where they're reviewing their practices, the practice on how they write the job descriptions, on how they conduct the recruitment interviews, and so on. But that was not necessarily reflected at the job descriptions at the time. So maybe in the future, and now given the fact that there are many more job descriptions in there from our UK member institutions. So that would be something to keep an eye out for, to see if there are any the degree of similarity of statements, although especially at the time, there were some approaches like we're using, like tending to use a positive statement at the place at the top or end of the template and so on, but not necessarily using same terminology like yes. EDI, like equality, diversity, inclusion, was often referenced within the body of the job descriptions. But no, there was not at the time some statements that were used across the board from everyone.
Got it. Thanks. And I think this is probably a good good follow-up to that is, did any tensions emerge with the different expectations or aspirations regarding embedding diversity and inclusion in recruitment practice between the parent institution and library practice?
Yes, that was not so much evident through the actual job descriptions, but this is something. But this is one of the reasons why we conducted also some interviews with senior levels within six RL UK member institutions, to just have a bit of a more discussion and understand the structures behind all these processes. So yes, there were most of the senior members were invited, often had to attend and invited to attend to committees within the broader home institutions that aim to discuss these issues, and that was a really important first step in order to advocate about more inclusive policies and more diversity in the workforce. Because if you are not, because generally libraries tended to follow the EDI policies within their home institutions, and when people from the library were invited in those discussions, that made things so much easier to communicate those needs, but they had to really many times like strongly advocate and about the need to do so. And yeah, given all the lack of funding, yeah, there were tensions there, for sure, from what we found from the library, trying to negotiate and communicate about that necessity of building a more diverse workforce and supporting ADI initiatives. And that started from the members of the library, from the more senior members of the library being invited to those meetings to have these discussions and drive them forward.
Great, thank you. Final question. So we've got a couple of people interested in the kind of current context in the US. And how you think maybe the relationship between US colleges and institutions and the current government will affect this picture, and how RL UK might need to consider this changing landscape.
Yes, that is a very, very interesting question. And yeah, lots of us are looking at developments there to try and understand what they will mean for practices there and how they could potentially reflect back to the UK. So something that we do, at this point, one of the things would be very interesting to repeat that exercise in the future, doing that research, given that we have access to this resource where there are lots of different, lots of position descriptions from the US and Canada, and see how that changes. The other is that we frequently meet with colleagues as part of a broader international alliance, the IARLA network. We meet with colleagues from ARL and CALC and others internationally, like in Australia, and we have these discussions. So yeah, I'm sure in the next few meetings, this will be one of the key topics. And I think, certainly collaborating and supporting colleagues, but also just learning from them about their experience there, and how we can all together work to support more inclusion and diversity. I think, that will certainly, I'm sure it will come up in future meetings, and hopefully we can communicate it in the future more about it. But we are at the point where we also would like to understand from colleagues there what is happening.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Christina. That is now the end of this session, and I'm going to stop